The Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep and grizzly bears live in some of the most spectacular and rugged country on the planet. Filmmaker Leon Lorenz journeys into the Alberta Rocky Mountains and captures rare and incredible footage of a sheep fight that lasted for hours. The battle starts off with 3 rams against a very determined newcomer to the band. The fighting of bighorns is one of the most exciting rituals in the mountains. The grizzly bears have only humans to fear as they roam the valleys and mountains that they call home. British Columbia has some of the best habitat for them, and you'll see many close-up and seldom seen behaviors of these powerful and unpredictable animals that are born to be forever wild. The Rocky Mountain bighorn, Ovis canadensis, is the largest and most abundant of several varieties of bighorn sheep. It is believed that more than 1 million bighorns once lived in the mountains of North America, with approximately 45,000 now remaining. There is an estimated population of 5,800 bighorns in Alberta, and this province also has some of the largest rams, with weights of 300 pounds or more. Their impressive horns, which can weigh 30 pounds and be 45 inches in measurement around the outside curve, are undoubtedly the most coveted trophy for hunters in North America. Just like there are no 2 snowflakes alike, so too are the sheep's horns. One can learn a lot about a ram's life by examining its horns, as in counting the age rings. Each age ring represents a year's growth. The sheep's horns have an inner core of bone and an outer covering which is hard and made to withstand hard impacts during fighting. Unlike deer, elk, and moose that shed their antlers each winter and grow a new set in the spring, the sheep's horns remain with them for life, growing larger each year. Bighorn sheep may live to be 15 years old, but the average age is 7 to 8 years. Most die during the winter from cold, predation, or disease due to malnutrition. A long rutting season can take its toll on breeding males and leave them with a low fat reserve. This may cause them to succumb to a severe winter. By the first week in November, most rams that have spent the summer in bachelor groups will be on the ewe ranges. During this time, the pre-rut behaviors are acted out, as rams of all size, strength, and age find their position on the hierarchy ladder. By smelling and lip curling, the rams are able to determine if the ewe will soon be coming into estrus and be ready to mate. It is the ewe, however, that will determine the exact time, and will resist any ram until she's ready, and then will favor the dominant ram. When they're not engaging in social behaviors with other rams, resting and feeding are high priorities. Their ability to navigate steep rocky surfaces is absolutely amazing. The hoof is designed so that each half separates, and it is hard at the outer edge and spongy in the center, which enables them to have a great deal of traction as they climb or descend steep and slippery cliffs. A snowfall of 6 inches in early November is no obstacle for these hardy animals. They are both browsers and grazers, and can easily paw through to get at the life-sustaining grasses beneath. The sheep are in top physical condition, as they have had 6 months of lush feeding to recover from the previous winter. In stormy conditions, they will feed in forested areas, but prefer the windswept slopes near cliffs, where they feel safer from their enemies. 2 reasons mountain sheep can survive a long and cold winter are their fat reserve and their 2-layer coat. The outer layer consists of brittle guard hairs that overlay a thick underwool. As snow brings the bighorn sheep to lower elevations, they share the countryside with many other species of wildlife, including elk, deer, snowshoe hare, and the marten. Predators like wolves and cougars that prey on animals like the sheep will also follow the herds to lower elevations. Weather during the month of November can often be unpredictable, with an early snowfall in the first week and spring-like conditions the following week. Here in early November, the past several days of rain have melted most of the snow back to the higher elevations, and the sheep also seem to desire moving higher up. If they have easy foraging, they will often stay until heavy snow brings them down again. In some years, November is quite mild, and it is often well into December before winter closes in. The following footage you are about to see happened on a wet, windy November 10th, just prior to the rut. Leon spent every minute from dawn to dusk with this particular band of bighorn sheep that consisted of 3 mature rams, 5 immature rams, 6 ewes, and their offspring. For over a week, no serious fights broke out, except for the odd clash and a few foreleg kicks. The problem, from a filmmaker's point of view, was that the rams knew each other very well, so there wasn't much action. They understood their positions, and at this time, a serious fight was unnecessary. It all changed that November morning when this ram whom Leon named Stranger arrived from a high ridge and quickly made his presence known. As Stranger made his rounds to different ewes and rams, he seemed totally unperturbed that 3 other mature rams were as big as himself. His presence seemed to waken the entire herd. All senses were on high alert as a fighting mood started to build. Bighorn sheep nearly always horn a tree or low brush prior to a fight, as if it's a warm-up ritual. Right from the onset, it was very evident that Stranger wasn't going to be accepted into this band without a battle to determine his rank. As the stage was being set for a major showdown, the immature rams and subordinates engaged in short-lived interactions without being in a dominance fight. They didn't feel threatened as the focus was on Stranger, and they could gain valuable experience by joining in. There can be only one dominant ram in a band of sheep this size, and with 4 fairly equal matures competing for top position, a major fight was imminent. Facing his opponents, Stranger never wavered, but showed courage and determination. Mass times acceleration equals clash force. Therefore, up to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch can be reached when rams fight. Their horns, thick facial hide, and double-layered skull protects their heads from serious damage. Also, much of the force is absorbed against the tension of the spine. Walking away is not giving up, but an opportunity to gain momentum for another clash. It's interesting to note that once the fight got serious, the immature rams never interacted again. When two rams fight, they rarely injure each other. Here, another ram hits from the side before Stranger could recover from a clash, and he receives a deep gash. With three mature rams against Stranger, it was possible that he could sustain a serious injury. With all rams breathing hard, Stranger is not giving up. By this time, the battle had worked downhill, away from most trees, and was going on for 2 hours. What incredible stamina! One of the subordinates had quit fighting, but the two remaining rams continued to hammer Stranger. During the entire duration of this battle, Stranger was on the downhill side of every clash. Rams that position themselves on the uphill side of their opponent have a huge edge in momentum. Successful fighting comes with lots of experience, and the dominant seems to have it. What Stranger may have lacked in experience, he made up with in heart and stamina. He challenged more often than his rivals, and accepted every one of their clashes head-on, and was always ready to battle on. At this time, the dominant ram shows his rank by foreleg kicking the remaining subordinate who submits to him. It's now the dominant against Stranger. The heavy clashes between these two could have been heard 1 mile away. If you watch carefully, you'll see that Stranger chips the dominant's horn in this clash. The next clash in slow motion shows another piece flying off. The horn tip is now as sharp as a knife point and can be a deadly weapon. Stranger shows determination by pawing the ground like a mad bull. The dominant refuses to give up his top rank to Stranger, who is younger and has a smaller horn set. The dominant displays his larger horn set to Stranger. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Stranger gives up after more than 3 hours of hard fighting. With sides heaving, he has finally submitted to the dominant ram. After giving his all and holding up against such an onslaught of clashes, he wisely decided to give in. To continue fighting wouldn't change anything. In his tired state, he was more likely to be seriously injured by the dominant's shattered horn tip if he were to stumble during a clash. Even after Stranger had fully submitted, the dominant repeatedly pressed a horn tip against Stranger's side. Fortunately, it wasn't the shattered one. This was to reinforce that he is king of rams on this mountain and has earned the right to still be the dominant. What a battle! An incredible showdown.
Well, this is home to the mountain grizzly, a remote valley in east central British Columbia. Like many parts of British Columbia have many remote areas, and this is what they love, is a remote area far from human beings. They don't have hardly any contact. The odd hunter might be wandering through here, a hiker, but generally speaking, they have no contact. These are not park animals. They're actually very afraid of human beings. Of course, you know, getting close quarters with the mother grizzly with the cubs, or a grizzly feeding on a carcass could be a very dangerous situation. But by and large, the animals are very frightened of humans, and it's extremely difficult to get close to these animals to get good footage.
One of the earliest signs of spring in the mountains of British Columbia is the migration of Canada geese from warmer climates. Winter is loosening its frozen grip on the land, and wildlife are quick to take advantage of easier foraging. Birds that aren't usually full-time residents, like crows, hawks, and robins, are also early arrivals to the mountains. Here, a great gray owl finds mousing in the Rocky Mountain Trench so much easier with the snow gone. The drumming of the male ruffed grouse is another sure sign of spring. Harlequin ducks enjoy the wilderness solitude that abounds throughout the Rocky Mountains, and so does the blue grouse. After a long winter's sleep, the black bears are out of hibernation, and food is foremost on their minds. The grizzly bear, Ursus arctos horribilis, has also been named King of Beasts in Western North America because of its incredible strength and courage. A mighty blow from one of its huge paws is sufficient to break the neck of a large bull moose. Despite their large size, they're lightning quick and can run as fast as a horse. For Leon to film these magnificent bears in the wild is a boyhood dream come true. It can chill one's blood when one reads heroic stories of explorers like Lewis and Clark and their narrow escapes with grizzlies who had not yet learned to fear man. Modern-day attacks happen from time to time, and this fact makes the grizzly one of the most feared and respected animals on the planet. However, most grizzlies avoid humans. With their keen sense of smell, one whiff of the dreaded odor of man will generally cause an approaching bear to run quickly for thick cover. The eyesight of grizzly and black bears has often been claimed to be poor. However, what Leon has observed over years of filming these animals is that inside 50 yards, their vision is quite good, and they can easily identify the human form. A hand movement can catch their eye at 100 yards, and walking motion at 200 yards will often draw the bear's attention. Grizzlies have an amazing sense of smell. An old Indian saying is, "A pine needle fell. The eagle saw it, the deer heard it, and the bear smelled it." It is by far their strongest sense, which alerts them to approaching danger, helps them to find food like spawned-out salmon, or to find mates. This grizzly returned within a few seconds after it had had a sudden encounter with Leon at 20 feet. Both were surprised at the same time. Why did the grizzly return? More than likely to check out what had frightened it. When a grizzly bear of any size approaches inside 50 yards, it can be a heart-stopping experience. But when a huge king of the mountain is nearly in your lap, well, it's kinda hard to explain, says Leon. The wearing of unscented camouflage clothing and the masking of human scent from the body will sometimes pay off by allowing one to go undetected at close range. Usually, however, the grizzly will detect human odor, regardless of the use of scent-removing soaps or sprays. In more cases than not, a steady breeze in one's favor is needed to go undetected. Keeping low, staying calm, and blending into the surrounding area also helps one to film Ursus acetos horribilis at close range. Here, just before dark, a mother grizzly is in search of a Chinook salmon meal and approaches within 12 feet of Leon, who was positioned up on the overturned roots of a tree. Armed with only a commercial red pepper repellent and remaining calm, Leon experienced what very few people will. A wild grizzly going about its business of fishing and fully aware of a human that is just 30 feet away. What an incredible experience. Good grizzly country means that there is an abundant food supply nearby to satisfy their ravenous appetites. Right after the snow melts at low elevations in the Canadian Rockies, the western spring beauty plant is often abundant on open mountain slopes and is one of the earliest flowers to bloom. The grizzlies will spend long hours scooping out the underground 2-centimeter in diameter corms that the plants grow from. Large areas are often rooted up for this tasty morsel. Grizzlies emerge from their winter dens in early spring, which is usually from March through May. They may have lost from 15 to 40% of their body weight over the winter. A female grizzly bear with newborn cubs will have lost more percentage of her body weight than a bear with no cubs, as the youngsters who were born in mid-January or February have fed on their mother's milk. Her milk is very rich with proteins and minerals and has over 20% fat. If the bears hibernated with a thick layer of fat, most will emerge in early spring in good condition, and they may continue to draw from their fat reserve until there is an abundance of food. They will have a lot of tissue rebuilding to do over the next several months, and weight gain will be slow. However, bears that have an opportunity to feed on winter-killed ungulates in the spring will have a quicker recovery. They are the largest carnivore in North America next to the polar bear. However, their varied diet makes them successful omnivores. Their mainstay in early spring is green herbaceous plants that are in early growth stages. At this time, they are succulent, easily digested, and high in nutrients compared to later growth stages. Porcupines that normally feed on the inner bark and tender buds of trees also enjoy the new plant growth. With its keen sense of smell, it catches the scent of the feeding grizzly just 60 yards away. Armored with 30,000 quills, it doesn't seem to be perturbed by this male grizzly, who never caught the scent of the porcupine or of Leon because of a gentle breeze in their favor. The common name grizzly is derived from the term grizzled, which refers to the hair that has gray or white ends on the dark hairs of their coats, as on this one. However, not all grizzlies show this grizzled or silver-tipped look. This bull moose, with its lame hind leg, would be in serious trouble if a roaming grizzly bear happened upon it and moose meat was on its menu. Green-up time of avalanche slopes and mountain meadows may vary from year to year and is controlled by many factors. A deep snowpack, coupled with below-average temperatures during spring breakup, will slow the green-up process. The south-facing slopes are the first to receive the renewal of life in the mountains of Western Canada. These locations have longer exposure to the sun's energy, and the snow will melt much sooner than other sites that receive little or no sun, as on the north-facing slopes. As the season progresses, the orientation to the sun changes, and these areas will receive more of the sun's energy and plant growth will take place. Most plant foods are highest in nutritional value in the early stages of growth, and this is when the bears will seek out their prime feeding areas. They may stay for days or even weeks, feeding on tender grass, horsetail, hedocerum roots, and bulbs. Moist mountain meadows or frequent rainfall will prolong the growing season considerably, as moisture is what the plants need to be succulent and nutritional. As the vegetation becomes dormant or past its prime for bear food, they will seek out areas where the plants are just starting to grow, such as on the north-facing slopes or at a higher elevation. Grizzlies, as well as black bears, also consider salmon, grubs, beetles, ants, berries, and wild honey as tasty additions to their diet. The grizzly generally has a dreaded fear of man and will seek thick cover, as does the black bear to the grizzly. Good grizzly country usually means a low population of black bears, so if one sees many black bears, it is a good indication that there are few or no grizzlies around. This black bear has caught the fresh scent of its larger relative and shows fear. It is unsure whether to continue in this direction. Given an opportunity, a hungry grizzly will kill and eat a black bear. Being mainly a forest dweller, black bears can climb trees quickly if danger threatens them. Mature grizzlies can outrun black bears, but usually can't climb trees because they have much longer claws and heavier bodies. Fully trusting its sense of smell, this grizzly quickly heads into the cover of the forest after detecting the scent of Leon at 50 feet. Approximately 15 minutes later, this timber wolf, traveling in the area of the grizzly, reacts very similarly to the black bear. It shows caution and respect when the fresh scent of the bear fills its nostrils. Any animal or human that is careless or indifferent to a grizzly will eventually find himself in a dangerous situation with it. Capturing close-up footage of courting grizzlies on a mountainside is certainly one of the highlights of filmmaking for Leon. Generally, grizzlies are solitary creatures, especially large adult males. Some exceptions are when a female is raising cubs, the mating season, or where there is a high concentration of food, like on salmon spawning streams. In early spring, the male grizzly bear searches for the best food source available and seeks out females that will soon be coming into readiness to mate. He will follow the scent trails left by the female, and with his keen sense of smell, won't have any trouble finding her. His search most likely will end where the female is, at a prime feeding area. They may spend days or weeks here if they are undisturbed by humans and according to the availability of food. Here, they are frolicking like cubs and enjoying each other's company until they mate and go their separate ways. The mating season is usually from mid-May through June. At first, a male's advances may be rejected by the female with paw swats or charges. Eventually, however, she will accept him and repeated copulation will take place over a few days. She will likely become pregnant, but this does not necessarily mean she will have youngsters to care for the following spring. Grizzly bears have a process called delayed implantation. At first, the embryo floats freely in the uterus, and its development is delayed. Sometime in the fall, her body senses whether she will have enough fat reserve to support herself as well as a family over the winter. If her fat reserves are low, the embryo is reabsorbed by the body. If she can, the embryo is implanted in the uterine wall and begins to grow. By January or February, she will give birth to her cubs in the winter den. At birth, they are blind, toothless, and weigh approximately 1 pound each. Grizzlies have one of the lowest reproduction rates of any North American land animal, resulting primarily from the late age of its first reproduction, which is 6 to 7 years on average. They will only reproduce an average of every 4 years and average 2 cubs per litter. These biological traits, coupled with the fact that half of all cubs may not reach breeding age, is a leading reason for the grizzly's low population. These two grizzlies were filmed a number of times while they fed and courted throughout a 2-week period during the month of June. Another female was sometimes seen feeding with them, which the pair did not object to. Snow avalanches that have earlier roared down the mountain make a great place for courting grizzlies to play. What they learned as cubs, playing with their siblings, certainly doesn't leave them when they become adults. So human-like in this regard. Leon didn't see them mate. However, on his next trip a couple of days later, he saw this monster with the female. Grinning from ear to ear, she is now all lovey-dovey with him. The female's former friend was no longer around. A major fight may have taken place, or the former couple may have mated and the male moved on to find another female. Mountain grizzlies don't get much bigger than this guy who dwarfs the female. He may tip the scale at 800 pounds or more and be 8 feet in height when standing on its hind legs. Male grizzlies usually weigh from 400 to 600 pounds, and females 250 to 400 pounds on average. Female grizzlies may mate with other males, but the period of reproductive readiness is brief. So in essence, she may give birth to several cubs from different fathers, which explains why cubs from the same litter may look very different from one another. It's interesting to note that the male grizzly and the male Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep have a similar method in trying to keep away competing males. They may herd the female to an isolated area until the mating is completed. After the mating season, the grizzlies will go back to their solitary lives. As the summer months advance, other foods become available for bears, like berries and spawning salmon. Most grizzlies have access to a good supply of berries that will help them build a thick layer of fat for the upcoming winter. However, most mountain grizzlies won't ever taste a salmon. This is because there is no salmon spawning stream in their territory. Those fortunate enough to have protein-rich salmon as part of their food source will get fat easier and faster than those without. Here, on a tributary to the Fraser River, a first-time mother grizzly with a single cub searches for Chinook salmon carcasses that may have drifted into this logjam. When the pickings are slim on the stream, the bears can usually make a good living in the bush eating a wide variety of berries. An example is the high bush cranberry that this grizzly is eating. Periods of heavy rain don't dampen this family's enthusiasm to comb every area along the creek where spawned-out salmon may get hung up. Experience has taught the mother that she will eventually find more salmon to feed her 3 husky youngsters that have large appetites. Leon advises those who don't like to be near grizzlies to stay away from log jams on remote salmon-bearing streams. Grizzlies love log jams. At times, it can be like a well-stocked pantry for them. Log jams usually create deep pools where salmon carcasses can sink or get caught in the roots and sticks along the edge. Grizzly bears are at the top of the food chain, and they play a major role in the cleanup of salmon carcasses. They use their nose to guide them, and you can be sure that even if a dead salmon is under the water, they will find it. Their offspring learn by example, and lessons taught by their mother will stay with them for life. Another food source for the mountain grizzly bear is the Columbian ground squirrel. They live from the valley floors to the alpine meadows above the timberline. Here, a grizzly laboriously dug out a hibernating one in late August. A piece of fur was the only evidence that the bear was rewarded with a 2-pound meal. For Leon, filming grizzly bears is a never-ending learning experience, and more often than not, the bears will detect his presence. A typical example of this happened when he was working on a Chinook salmon film. Usually, encounters with grizzlies on the spawning grounds of central British Columbia are at close range, and really good setup locations are few and far between. This bear would love to catch a salmon, and Leon, who was positioned across the creek, would really appreciate this type of footage. it suddenly catches Leon's scent, even though he has taken every precaution to mask it. Approximately 30 minutes later, a bigger grizzly followed in the footsteps of the earlier bear and passed within 20 yards of Leon. Folks, this bear is huge. Note how the head appears small in relation to the body. All grizzlies have large heads, so this means the bear is a giant among bears. They're not concerned about whose territory they're on, but travel up and down the rivers at will. It too has fresh salmon on its mind, but alas, it catches Leon's scent. Suddenly, it occurred to Leon that his walking stick is leaning against the riverbank directly across from the spawning salmon. No wonder the bear's left in such a hurry. Sometimes, the bears have no idea that you are in their territory.
That's close enough now. That's close enough. That's close enough.
Grizzly bears are a true symbol of the wilderness, and their survival depends on how we humans will manage their population and care for the land. British Columbia's estimated population as of 2004 varies from 6,000 to 17,000, with some areas designated as threatened under the grizzly bear conservation strategy. The future for these magnificent creatures and the ecosystems will depend on all of us.